Thanks for watching The Thought Criminals, named after the Orwellian criminalization of independent thought and free speech. I'm your host, Rachel Alexander. I'm a weekly contributor to Townhall and other sites and the editor of Intellectual Conservative. And this is my mall, Ralph Benko, who worked in or with the Reagan, W. Bush, and Trump White Houses. He's a weekly columnist for Newsmax, co-author of the Capitalist Manifesto, and co-founder and executive chairman of the 184,000 member Capitalist League Facebook group. This week, we are going to discuss something that has been really annoying me in recent months, which is the Democrats' incessant use lately of the word democracy, referring to the US as a democracy. And then we're going to move on to an article that I believe Ralph wrote in response to an article I wrote.
Just to annoy you, Rachel, just to annoy you. Right.
Just to annoy me. He is saying that we should have no government intervention with big tech. And I had written an article a couple weeks ago that was much more nuanced about that issue. So we will really get into that pretty heavy.
I found it charming to find you crawling into bed with Elizabeth Warren, Rachel, but I did not mention you by name.
You are completely mischaracterizing it, and that is the only way that you get anywhere with that column. And I'm stuck with the typical conservative position as usual, which is describing something that is way too complex for a short article. So yeah, we're going to have to devote the bulk of this video to that because it's going to be so long for me to explain why you are wrong. But anyways, to begin with,
I am wrong in saying capitalism, not big government, is the solution to the flaws of social media. Okay,
make it that simplistic. We do not have pure capitalism with big tech anymore.
Oh, come on, Rachel. Now you're coming out against the First Amendment. You're going to come out against the Second Amendment next week. What about the Third Amendment?
Tech oligarchies, in conjunction with the government, are running significant, areas of society. That is not capitalism. So anyway, to go to analyze my article, which is, are we a democracy and why are the Democrats calling us a democracy? No, we are not a democracy. And I go over all the, reasons and the analysis, how, we were formed as a representative democracy, which is different. And there are other multiple names. Everybody will chime in and lecture me if I don't throw out some of the other variations of names. So click on the article at the bottom if you want to go read other names. But basically, if we were a full democracy, everybody would get to vote on every single issue. Okay, that is what they had in the early times when the word democracy emerged. Okay, people in Athens, every able-bodied male would go to the town assembly and they could vote on any issue that they wanted to. We do not do that here. We elect representatives, and we do that for a couple of good reasons, in order to stop tyranny of the majority, and also because our elected representatives are able to devote a lot more time than your average person to, analyzing political issues, because not everybody in the entire United States, hundreds of thousands of us, can devote that much time. So this new tactic that the Democrats are throwing around, saying, the US is a democracy and Trump is going to hurt the democracy and destroy our democracy with an insurgency on January 6th. Well, it's just all a ruse. That's not accurate. Nobody has been charged with insurgency, number one. The FBI has even come out and said there was no insurgency. So there was no danger to our democracy and the reason they call it a democracy instead of by what it actually is, because they know it's a representative democracy. They know what they're doing.
Wait, Rachel, I don't want to disagree. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just tweaking your rhetoric here. America is a republic. A republic is the proper one-word name for a representative democracy. I would rather you call it, and when after the Constitutional Convention, a woman named Mrs. Powell came up to Benjamin Franklin, who was there at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia of 1787, and said, "Dr. Franklin, what have you given us?" And Franklin turned to her and said, "A republic, if you can keep it." And the founders were very clear about making this a republic, which is the technical word for a representative democracy. They hated democracy. They considered democracy that would ultimately, inevitably end up in tyranny. We've got dozens of statements from the founders who wrote the Constitution and the early patriots who governed the United States that they absolutely hated democracy. The word democracy does not occur even once in the US Constitution, but in Article 4, Section 4, the Constitution guarantees every state a Republican form of government. And the fact that we have not sent the army in to kick out those darn Democrats who, when they get elected, because a Democrat is not a Republican form of government, it's democracy, and they hated that. So, we should actually be mobilizing the National Guard to show the Democratic elected officials the exit. Very, very, very politely and respectfully, but Article
You're
4.
going to get us banned again. Watch out, Ralph. Insurgency. Well, and that's fine. Like I said, there's other words that work to describe this. I'm just saying, to say plain old democracy is not accurate, and they're doing it on purpose. And here's where I think they're going with it. I think now that practically everybody has the internet from home, I think they want to push us in that direction, because the Democrats are the master at bribing homeless people with cigarettes, free rides, free meals to go to the polls and vote. They like taking advantage of low information voters like that. And so I think their ultimate goal is to get everybody voting from home on every single issue. And at the end of my article, I made a prediction, and I came up with this all on my own. Nobody else has talked about this yet. I think they're going to go after state legislatures next, and they're going to say, oh, well, we can just have everybody vote from home. We don't need state legislators to represent us. That's where this is all going, because the state legislatures are currently dominated by Republicans right now.
Well, and it's worse than even you know, Rachel, because the hypocrisy of the registered Democrats knows no boundaries. They give lip service to democracy. And what are the two agencies that they perpetually use and defend to advance their policies? Number one, the courts, which are the least democratic of the three branches of government. So they go democracy, 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 democracy. And there are 33 states held referenda on marriage, right? And in every single one of those states, the people voted to sustain the classic definition of marriage. And then the Supreme Court, the least democratic institution, basically said, "Oh no, five out of 9 people in the United States said, no, it's got to be gender neutral," right? That was completely preposterously undemocratic, but that's what they did, and that's what they do. And the other great, their other favorite use of government power is the bureaucracy. Career civil servants who are not elected by anybody and not even appointed by elected officials. So you have the Democrats singing all of these, the Democratic Tabernacle Choir stands up and sings the praises of democracy, and then uses the bureaucracy and the courts to advance their agenda in ways that the majority of the people in this country provably disapprove of. Now, guys, you can have it either way, but you can't have it both ways. And so their claim that this is a democracy is pure hypocrisy. It's not we should change their name from the Democratic Party to the Hypocritic Party, because they are trying to have it both ways. If they're for democracy, they should be for democracy, and they should not be jamming their agenda through the courts and the bureaucracy.
You're on a roll today, Ralph. I mean, I almost feel like I'm listening to me. This is
Well, I'm just telling you, you're not extreme enough for once, Rachel.
Well, I know things are about to take a turn downhill as we move on to your article. And
Yes.
I'll let you, begin describing it as you like, but I'm going to have a very strong rebuttal because I think government is way too involved now in corporations. So you can't say that it's pure capitalism in the free market anymore. It's
I don't say it's pure capitalism, the free market. I'm all for pure capitalism. I'm all for the free market, and it's never existed ever in history. Okay. And Adam Smith, who wrote the Bible of capitalism, Wealth of Nations. He didn't use the name because the name wasn't coined until a century later by Karl Marx, who used it as a slur. But Adam Smith said, merchants will never get together, even for the purpose of socializing, without ending up conspiring to raise prices and to stick it to the consumers. Okay. Big businessmen have never been capitalists. They've always tried to manipulate the system. What keeps them honest is not their character and not their philosophy, it's competition. And so my point is that big business controls the government, in case you haven't noticed, and to therefore put the government in charge of regulating big business, meaning social media, is insane. It's putting the fox in charge of the chicken coop. And I'm old. I've got an unfair advantage on you and most of my readers, Rachel, and that is I'm old. And I remember when IBM was the master of the digital universe and it ruled the roost, and nobody was ever going to knock IBM off. It was too powerful. It was big and huge and powerful. The federal government tried to break it up and failed. It was just, the same old story. And then this punk kid named Bill Gates came along, and people had invented PCs, and IBM was like, oh, PCs, they're just a toy. They're beneath our dignity. They're software engineers. Like, we're not going to write an operating system for those things. That's ridiculous. We're grown-ups. We do mainframes. Okay, so since none of their software engineers would write an operating system for these stupid little PCs, they called in two guys, a guy named Gary, I don't remember his last name, and a guy named Bill Gates, and said, would you provide us an operating system for PCs? And Bill Gates says, sure, and I'll give it to you for $100 per PC, as long as I am allowed to sell the operating system to your competitors as well. And IBM went, we don't have competitors. Sure, kid, knock yourself out. Okay, well, 10 years later, Microsoft had completely knocked IBM off the pedestal as the master of the digital universe because PCs turned out to be far more powerful, far more profitable, far more important than mainframes, okay? And then through competition, this punk kid, Bill Gates, became the richest man in the world, knocked IBM off its pedestal, and everybody knew, all the smart people in Washington knew that, well, Microsoft was going to dominate the digital universe forever. So they tried to bring an antitrust suit against it, just like they did against IBM. Okay.
And I wrote my senior paper in law school about that antitrust Microsoft, because I worked at Microsoft.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. But what happened was they didn't break up Microsoft. What happened was this other little companies named Google and Apple came along, and they ended up writing Chrome, which knocked off the Internet Explorer, which was the internet browser that was the dominant internet browser. Chrome was so much better that it took IE down from the dominant browser to a little 5% of the browser market. And of course, the browsers are a huge engine of profit for advertising. And also, Microsoft missed the boat on mobile. And so Android and Apple OS dominated the mobile operating system market, cell phones, right? Which turned out to be the big development. And so Apple and Google knocked IBM off of its throne, okay? And now we're moving into, and now Mark Zuckerberg just bet his company $10 billion worth last year on moving to the metaverse, which is a virtual or augmented reality, three-dimensional immersive universe. That's going to be the next, that sure looks like it's going to be the next big thing in digital. Now, will he dominate or will he not dominate? I don't know. Secretly, open secret, Google is turning itself into an artificial intelligence company. That's where their future is. So, as I say in my article, superstar teams don't fear the referees, they fear each other. And you've got 100 United States senators sitting around in togas, still debating whether they should outlaw fire or regulate it because it's so damn dangerous. So the government just moved. They're still, you know, I mean, these people, they're lead-footed. They are not real. They're not truly a threat. These people are threats to each other, and that's the way we want it to be. Competition is what keeps them honest, and what we want to do is we want them to be competing with each other for who gets to provide the best services and the best products at the best prices, and then we, the consumers, are king. That's capitalism. And no, it's not perfect, and no, it's not pure, but it's a heck of a lot better than what you're recommending, which is fascism.
Okay, that's not what I'm recommending. And
well, you're not using that word.
You bring up a very compelling point when you say that all these officials in government are in bed with big tech themselves. So having them, you know, choose what to do is kind of like, you know, the fox guarding the hen house. I get that. But one of the main things being considered to deal with big tech is just eliminating their protection that they have been given by the government from being sued over things like libel. So I think all that most people are asking to is quit protecting big tech from lawsuits that the mainstream media is not protected from.
To me, flabbergasted to find that you are climbing in bed with the tort lawyer lobby, who are basically saying, anytime anybody says a mean tweet about me, let me sue Twitter. That will destroy social media, absolutely destroy it. If you let people sue the platforms where this stuff is posted, hey, you can, if somebody says something mean about me on Twitter, I can go after that person. But to say that anybody can
I think any jury is gonna award anybody something for a mean tweet. That, you know, a mean tweet doesn't violate the law. That doesn't violate libel law.
Okay, but if somebody libels me, if somebody
that's not even accurate.
Look, I have problems with social media. Okay, I don't believe it's. I'm not optimistic about it, but I was one of the first 500 people to sign up for Truth Social. I don't think it's going anywhere, but God bless them, let them take their, not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just, it's an obsolete platform now. It looks like Twitter, smells like Twitter. And, you know, Twitter's great. It's got 400 million followers. And for them to peel off even 4 million from a dominant platform like that, it's just very hard. But I wish them the best. It's you were the one who touted them on me. You signed up, I signed up, and you know, I'm waiting to see where that goes. But the fact is, we're moving away from those antique platforms. They'll always be with us, just like Microsoft is still with us, and it's still $1 trillion company. But we're moving to artificial intelligence, and we're moving to augmented reality, to virtual reality. Okay, so trying to reinvent a platform that was cutting edge and hip almost 15 years ago. Okay, it's like, hey, the dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. I'm simply saying, by the way, the problem with Facebook, and more than Twitter, but Facebook has the biggest problem, is they've cut corners on their quality control by using algorithms to police moderate their content rather than using human beings. And when they use human beings, they use underpaid sweatshops in the developing world that don't have the kind of nuanced sensitivity to tell a disinformative piece of content from a controversial piece of content. I believe that Facebook needs to invest in a lot more high quality moderation, and they can well afford to do that. Other than that, the fact they're plowing all their free capital into the metaverse, and so, you know, That's just a business judgment.
I am gonna say, for the record, all right, and we can have this out here now between you and me. I ran my own social media business back in 2010, so I live and breathe it, just like you do. I didn't write the defining book predicting like you did, so you are one up on me there. But I am going to say that I disagree with you about Truth Social. My opinion is, if they add on the extra things that Facebook has, which they don't have right now, if they can become like a conservative version of Facebook, I do believe they are going to be hugely and wildly successful.
Hey, I wish them luck. I wouldn't have signed up. I'm not there with a rooting interest, and thank you for giving me the heads up, because you're a Washington insider, Rachel, even though you're neither in Washington nor an insider. But you have a lot of heavy hitter political Bigfoots who confide in you and who cultivate you, because you're a very, very respected and influential voice. And thank you for giving me the little heads up about Truth Social. I want them to succeed. I really want them to succeed. That said, I just think that they've got a very uphill battle. And it's really also one of the things that you didn't point out, and I'm gonna do you the favor of pointing it out, is that there's a disproportionate amount of attention paid to the political content on social media. 90%, according to rigorous studies by places like Pew, over 90% of the content on social media is completely apolitical. It's recipes, it's weather, it's baby pictures and stuff like that. So if you take out what Truth Social is trying to do, and I like this, is to try to be more neutral in terms of the kind of political opinion that will be tolerated without verging into hate speech. Truth Social is going to moderate, just like Twitter does, just like Facebook does. You got to moderate, or you end up with these message boards like 4chan that end up with mass murderers publishing manifestos on there, literally. Okay. And in fact, I'm happy to say that the free market shut down 4chan, or maybe it was 8chan, because of exactly that, without any government intervention. They're just saying, hey, we're not going to let that go on our server. So I'm just a much bigger believer in the power and the integrity of competition and free market capitalism. And I'm for enlightened capitalism. I'm the post ghost of Christmas yet to come Scrooge, where you've got the generous capitalist, not the not the early Scrooge, the miserly Scrooge. Capitalism, by its very nature, is generous. Does that mean merchants are generous? No, merchants are selfish. So the big fight that's actually going on, that hardly anybody except you and I ever know about, is it's between it. The biggest enemy of capitalism is not socialists, because they've failed 24 out of 24 times straight. And so only the feeble-minded really still embrace socialism, and God bless them. I love AOC. I don't mean to call her feeble-minded. Only the gullible still embrace socialism. The biggest threat to capitalism is businessmen, big businessmen and big businesswomen. So I'm all in favor of keeping the government in the role of referee and letting competition solve the problems of the authentic problems that big business like social media is encountering and needs to solve, and it'll come from their competition and punk upstarts like Bill Gates, who come up with a better system and knock the incumbents off their pedestals.
Well, I admire your optimism. I just think that it's too late. I think that capitalism has become so corrupted. These corporations, with conservatives being canceled in every aspect of your life. It's not only just your job, but it's your bank account. It's your all these different things that you do in society. We are now all being shut out of. I've been canceled twice now. So I think I think it's too far gone, and I'm glad you're an optimist. We need more optimistic people. That the corporations are just going to duke it out, and competition's going to solve everything. But I see the U.S. going downhill in this area, especially now that we've got, you know, the Democrats in control. I don't see this turning around anytime soon. So I mean, I guess that's kind of where we leave it. I mean, you're an optimist on this. I'm a pessimist. And do you want to have the last word?
Nope, that's it. Rachel, you get the last word. I don't know why a pessimist would pick an optimist for her mall, but I'm honored that you have. And I look forward to meeting you back again here next week. And I'm sure we will find even more contentious arguments to have.
And I just have to cut you off on that last word, because I'm not going to let you leave it saying that I am a pessimist, because overall, I never said I was a pessimist.
Okay, you win. You're a favorite optimistic pessimist. How's that?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and tune in to us next week. Thank you.